I get that there's people say they follow a path, but the path never ends. You just make
Mm.
little stops here and there. And you know, if you like that stop, you visit it again. If you don't, you find the next one and see how that one is. And that's essentially what I done. You know, I finished the path with fighting at competitions. I wanted to see what the next path was going to take me to, and I'm grateful that I done that.
My guest for this episode is Hayden Meredith, a Shotokan instructor from Scotland, whose karate journey took an interesting turn early on. After competing and winning at a high-level kumite match, Hayden made the decision to step away from fighting, not because he couldn't win, but because it no longer aligned with who he was. Since then, he has gone deep into study of kata, bunkai, and body connection. He now runs his own clubs, contributes to Budo Mindset magazine, and builds thought-out training content through his YouTube channel, focusing on principles rather than performance. In this conversation, we explore depth over accumulation, confidence through study, and what does it really means to develop your karate. Let's get started. Hello, Hayden. Welcome to the Shugyō Podcast.
Oh, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been following you for a long time, and we've been chatting about this conversation. You know, before we get started, I wanted to get your perspective so listener know more about you. Can you give us a short version of your karate journey?
Yeah, of course. So my journey started maybe 14, 15 years ago when I was a teenage boy. I joined a club. It was quite fighting oriented. Went to a lot of competitions, fighting against people. By the time I hit sort of 18, I decided to leave, find something a bit more traditional, something a bit more purposeful, if you want. I didn't enjoy the fighting as much. And then I went through a few clubs, battling the political fun parts of karate. And then eventually I came to my two senseis, and now who I've stayed with for the better half of nearly 5, 6 years. I graded with them. I've managed to open up my own clubs with their support, so that's been really good. And from there, it's kind of just grew and blossomed into its own big thing. And I've managed to meet people like yourself. I've been doing the magazine, Budo Mindset magazine. I've started up my own YouTube channel, and now I'm getting asked to go to different clubs to teach. So it kind of just started off as a boy interested in martial arts, and it's just grew into my passion, and it's what I love doing now. And I couldn't think of anything else to do instead.
Thanks for sharing. And one thing you just said intrigued me a lot. You mentioned that you didn't like the fighting part at competition anymore. What happened? It made you spark the switch and change kind of the approach that you apply to your own practice.
It wasn't that I was bad or anything, but I didn't have that. I don't want to say violent side of me. I didn't have that side of me where I wanted to hurt someone. And I was hitting the stages in the competition that the competition level was rising, and they didn't mind landing a good solid technique in. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make friends and learn good karate. And I remember I was at a Scottish Championships, and I'd won the fight. I got the gold medal, and I remember getting home and I looked at my mum and dad. I went, "I'm done fighting." And dad
Mm.
was proper confused. You know, he was like, "Oh, why are you done fighting? You won the medal." And I said, "I don't enjoy it anymore. It's not who I am. I don't want to do that. I want to focus on the other aspects of karate training." And I remember it took me a little while to come at peace with that, because like I said, I'd been fighting nearly 4 or 5 years at my first club. So it took a while to be happy with that decision, and I've never looked back on it. I've not entered into a fight, into a competition ever since. And I do spar, I do that at the club, but competition wise, I just don't enjoy the fighting side of it.
Mm. That's very interesting, especially you are a younger generation of a sensei. You know, you're just 26, if I'm giving away that secret.
Yes,
Um,
yep.
Most people like the sparring, and they would a lot of time be kind of done with it when they get older. But it's such a young age, and the reason I want to ask you that question is there are a lot of people set on a certain style, set on a tradition, and maybe set on a path, right? If you are joining a certain club, if you study a certain style, you have to walk the same path as everyone else does. I want to get your take on that. Like, what do you feel about that? I understand there's tradition, there's different method, but then in the day that we live in right now, there's not really one path that one should walk along everyone. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you get your clubs that have the set paths, like you said, like for kumite or kata, that's all you can do. And I suppose really, like I was quite lucky with my instructors that they supported me no matter what and allowed me to not change my path, but just journey on and discover a different direction if you want. And I think if I stuck to the same path that was the fighting, the competitions, I probably would have stopped altogether. I probably would have looked for different martial arts. And it goes to that side again. I just don't have that violent side in me. And I knew there was more to karate than just your fighting or just your kata. And I wanted to explore that depth. Um, so yeah, like I get that there's people say they follow a path, but the path never ends. You just make
Mm.
little stops here and there. And if you like that stop, you visit it again. If you don't, you find the next one and see how that one is. And that's essentially what I done. I finished the path of fighting at competitions. I wanted to see what the next path was going to take me to, and I'm grateful that I done that.
What does the searching process looks like? Rewinding it back to, you finished the competition, you've won, right? But you decided this is not what I wanted to do anymore. What was the searching process like? And were you divine, this is what I wanted to do, or is basically a searching process for the right journey to continue?
Yeah, I mean, I took a complete step back from that club, like the karate club, and I started just dipping into other styles. So I was searching. I didn't at the time. I didn't know what I was searching for. I just wanted something different. And the searching, I was just looking at different styles. So I went to some judo, I went to some kung fu, I went to some boxing, and I enjoyed every one. But there was always that little drive to go back to karate. And I think searching, looking at all these different perspectives, it just put me back on that path of karate club. So I had to find new instructors, and that's another story with my old instructor. But I found my current instructors, and I remember the first lesson I done with them, and I was hooked onto it. And it was because they dived so deep into the study of kata and bunkai and like body connection, and it doesn't have to be this violent art, but we can do karate for ourselves, for our own body, without having to, be aggressive. And it really hooked me onto their classes at the start, and I've just stayed with them since from that.
Mm. That's a good question, for me to follow up because nowadays with YouTube, we have a lot of channels that we could get information on fighting
Yep.
katas. And as soon as someone knows that I practice karate, they'll ask me, how many katas do you know? And when I sometimes travel to another seminar, right, see other karateka, they always kind of say, what kata are you working on? They're kind of feeling you out to see where you're at with the kata.
Yep.
But also at the same time, I've been reading books that says in the old days, a karateka in their lifetime, they only practice 2 to 3 katas really well. Obviously, what are your thoughts and why do we change so much, from back then and nowadays? Is it a fine line for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite simply because we can, can't we? We have so much to our disposal to use, books, technology, YouTube, and it's all free. It's right there for us to watch. And I think it's become quite a common trait for us to want more, 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 more. And you see it all the time in clubs, even like gradings. It's when do I do my next grading? When do I do my next grading? And I don't think we take our time enough to really study the depth of the stuff we're learning in karate and anything really in life. We don't take that time to study it. And again, this is why I go back to my two current instructors. I remember doing like weeks and weeks of one kata with bunkai with them, and that really sort of changed my thinking for kata. I used to be obsessed with trying to learn new katas and different styles of katas that I would see at competitions. To the point I was on YouTube till like silly o'clock at night time and trying to practice them. And what I kind of realized from it was I never really knew the kata. I was just copying what I saw. And then again, after studying with my instructors, now I'm really starting to understand some of the katas. And I'm still learning stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm
Mhm.
now starting to really understand some of the messages in the katas and how we can link them to each other. And the bunkai behind them is becoming a lot clearer for me.
So knowing what you know right now, I know it's a it depends type of answer. When do you know that you can move on if you wish for another cutter? So you know what you're working on the cutter really well, and then you feel that okay, I have enough of what I could do right now. Maybe I'll start a new one. Like how do you see that for yourself?
Yeah, so I kind of set myself a little time frame on each kata, at least spend a month on a kata. And then when I start feeling like I'm getting the points I'm looking for, so take for example, I was working on Shinte for January. I would get to the stage where am I working on the timing? Am I feeling that timing settling in? Okay, I'm feeling that settling in. Is my connection there? Yeah, the connection's there. Okay, before I get too obsessed with kata, let's now just move on to the next one, but let's try and carry that principle to the next one. And I think it's, for me, it's setting little goals like that for yourself because at, at the end, it's your karate. This isn't anyone else's karate. So if you can set yourself little goals for your kata, who's to tell you you've not hit them? You can ask for feedback from your senseis, from other people, of course. But I've had people tell me, "Oh, your karate, that's not connected," and I've went, "Well, how do you know?" Well, I can just see it. It's not connected from looking at it for a picture. And I went, "Well, I'm feeling pretty connected. It's so for me, it's quite individualistic, and especially when you get to a certain stage, you have to be able to set your own goals with your kata. And you refer to back in the past, you only learned a few katas, and I think there's merit to that, most definitely, because then you become very adept at those katas. And I think if we learn too many katas, we start missing the messages behind them. And what I know we have 26 different katas in Shotokan, but what we're quite good at with my instructors is trying to find the messages to link them all together. So if we're looking at feelings in one kata, how can we apply that feeling to the next kata? Where can we find the link from a heian kata to one of the more advanced katas? And for me, that's kind of the progression is when you start feeling you're quite happy, but not like we're never going to have a perfect kata. But when you feel sort of happy and content, that's great. Let's put that kata to the side. Let's then just look at a new kata, fresh set of eyes on it. Let's see if we can carry that principles over.
Thanks for the detailed answer and explanation. And I think you're right. Spending more time and better understanding on a kata, and then you move on to something else. And then I would say that when you come back to it, maybe a little later to revisit the same kata, maybe once you develop more skills on your own, then you'll find a new purpose. That's why they're saying, there's never ending in study of kata because
Yeah,
the more skillful that you are, maybe you could kind of use like a video game analogy. You can unlock, some move
yeah,
that previously you cannot do. Maybe when you first started, you really don't know you can move the body this way. But by studying maybe 10 years, 20 years later, come back to the basic kata, then when you see a master do the heian kata and a beginner do heian kata, same one, but then why is the master so much better?
yeah. I mean, it's funny. We have this little me and my one of my senseis have a laugh. He'll be teaching a kata, and I'll look at him. I go, "Oh, that's like Heian Nidan," and he looks at me a bit puzzled. And then I show him what I'm talking about, and he goes, "Oh, you're right. That is like Heian Nidan," and we have a good old laugh about it. And I love that side of the training, like being able to link these different katas together when they're two completely different katas. And you're talking about like advanced practitioner doing a Heian kata. Rick Cotton Sensei said this perfectly in one of his interviews. He goes, Heian Shodan is the kata after Unsu. So after you work your way through all the katas, all the senior ones, you go back to Heian Shodan or Taikoku Shodan, it should be just as advanced as Unsu or Sochin because you've worked through all the principles and now you're going full circle again. And I love that because for me, the Heian katas are the foundation to the rest of the katas.
As a sensei now yourself, you have to teach other students kata. The way that you understand the kata yourself might be totally different than someone learned it from scratch. You probably have to know a lot more, be able to cue them using your words, right?
Yep.
To show them what it is supposed to be. Because a lot of times, maybe the foot position is natural to you. The way that it flows is very, simple for you. But for a lot of us, it might not be easy just to turn around or maybe shift our ways. Like maybe we haven't even done that. How much more do you feel yourself studying now you're teaching students on your own?
I know what I want to look for. And I'm quite big on teaching people karate. Like they need to be good at their karate. They're never going to be able to be me in karate. I have my own style of karate. If you want, you'll have your own style of karate. My sensei will have their own style. So when I'm teaching kata, I never try getting them to copy me. But what I will try and explain to them is the feeling, the connection that they should be trying to feel from the stance through to the arms or in their core. And I never really thought about it too much until I started teaching. So when I was teaching like younger students, none of them really questioned me much because they were younger students and it just wasn't the done thing. And then one of my senseis started coming to my class and he started questioning me when I was teaching kata. And he was really getting me to try and vocalize and articulate what my thoughts were for the katas. And that really helped my teaching. So now when I'm teaching, if it be kids or beginners or adults, seniors, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not trying to teach you what I do, but I want to teach you the feelings that I'm feeling and see if you can understand it that way.
Yeah, that's a really good way to do it. And then you can kind of personalize the experience. Maybe someone is stronger, someone is
Yes.
taller, especially the different body type. And I think I'm a tight person, not in a good way, like my body is tight, you know what I'm saying? But my sensei is always very good at using his words. He say, you have the yang side really good, like the power, the rigidness, but then you should look into more the yin side, like the flexibility, the gracefulness. So he actually asked me to go on YouTube and look for a video for the same kata that people perform more fluidly. Ask me not to look for the powerful ones doing the same kata. So if I'm able to blend the yin and the yang, I may find some improvement out of the kata. So I think that's really good advice because I'm not as flexible as a lot of people would be. If I could actually develop the flip side of what people think is powerful, I can actually improve on a lot of things that I do.
Yeah, I mean, like this has been my little motto that I've been saying is teaching people to be good at their karate. And what I'm trying to do is sort of identify what other people are needing in their karate. So, for example, you're saying you need to be a bit more fluid when you're doing a certain kata. So there's no point me trying to teach you how I do my kata because my body is different to yours. I'm different height, different size, different flexibility. So what I try doing is pinpointing what they need to work on. For example, being a bit more fluid. And then I say, right, well, let's try this way. Let's try this way. Let's look at this kihon and see if this can help you do your kata a bit more fluid. And for me, I think that's missed with a lot of people. I think a lot of people teach people their karate, and not everyone can do their sensei's karate. And I think, like you're saying there, your sensei advised you to go and watch other people do kata. I think that's another element that should be encouraged more because no one's kata should ever look the same. Karate is art of the empty hand. We're artists at the end of the day. Our kata should all represent our bodies, not a standard sort of everyone looks the same.
Yeah, I really like that answer because sometimes when you go into karate, the sensei is built like a tank. They're just really muscular, powerful. But if you are a smaller frame person or if you are regular people walking in, you'll be intimidated because a lot of things that the sensei can do, you cannot. And a lot of time too, especially in America, a lot of people are taller than what the traditional martial artists from Japan, coming out with this kata. They're smaller in size. Some people in America, they're over 6'2", so they have really long limbs and long legs, and the way that they do their front stand is like twice the size that it should be. In the video that we've seen, so they really have to change the way their body move to able to accommodate some of the
Yep.
smaller details moves. And I don't think that's right or wrong. It's just the way that they approach. Maybe their hands are just longer, or their leg is just so much wider, the hip is wider. Then you really have to personalize for your own
Yeah,
needs.
definitely. And I mean, again, I go back to my two instructors. It's quite funny because one of them is really tall and really long, and he's really sort of whippy and fast with his karate. And the other one's a lot shorter, and he's a bit more sort of sturdier and stockier, if you want. And he looks at different aspects. And I'm kind of bang on in the middle, height wise and body wise on them both. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. So I get this long, whippy, fast karate, and I get this short, connected, sturdy karate, and I get this nice balance. And like you're saying there, it's kind of how to personalize that for other people. And it's a fun little sort of game to play when you are teaching because you do have to personalize it. Not everyone can do what we do.
I know you're a big YouTuber. You do YouTube video yourself. So I want to ask you this question, kind of like the new way that we are consuming content for karate. In the old days, we have our sensei, we go to our dojo to learn,
Yep.
right? And then maybe we have books that we can access to, maybe some magazines that we have access to. But now with YouTube, you could go watch any language of people doing the
Yep.
same thing that you might want to learn. So as a younger sensei, like how do you deepen your learning? And then are there any ways that I did not mention that you think the listeners should focus on or to find out to improve the skills?
So even though you'll class me as young, being 26, I like a good book. So I will read a good book, and I've got a little library upstairs of karate books. That being said, I do use YouTube a lot, and I say use it a lot. I use it less now, but now that I'm quite happy with what I'm teaching and I'm developing, I use YouTube a lot less. But I used it a lot to get ideas,
Hmm.
and I think that's quite, especially when you get to a certain stage in your karate and you want a bit more inspiration. It's nice to search for more ideas. I would say for people wanting to use YouTube, try and find karateka or videos that aren't too far from what you're doing. Some people can quite often go down a rabbit hole and then it sort of deviates from what they're training, their principles, and then they get a bit confused, a bit lost. And I've made that mistake before in my karate. I was watching these videos of someone on YouTube and I thought they were really cool, and I was getting myself not confused in the sense I didn't know what I was doing, but the principles weren't aligning to what I was wanting to do. And I was getting myself sort of mixed between the two. So I had to take a little step back. The other one, I think, like for you said about like ways to help your training, speak to people, get in contact with people. You know, I'm forever talking to people from different clubs, different countries, and just getting to talk and see the differences. But again, I'm being mindful. I stay in line with my principles, and I think identifying the principles you want to achieve in your karate will help you do that. I think if I just went to another club and said, "Oh, I want to improve this," then I'm not going to improve much. But if I go with my principles and say, I'm looking to what you do here, how can I apply my principles to what you do? And that helps me develop a lot.
Hmm. That's very interesting. I know that you also been doing YouTube a lot and then
Yep.
filmed different katas. You talk about the bunkai. You're very well versed on internet and social media. I know a lot of sensei don't like to do videos, and
Yep.
then there are sensei who loves doing videos. So what are thoughts? And by doing videos yourself, are you learning more as you videotape? And how often do you find yourself getting stuck on the video and then you're not happy with what you see, watching back
All
the
the
tape?
time. All the time. So whenever I go teaching or training, I always stay behind at the end for half an hour and I will work on something. So for example, I mentioned I worked on Chinti for January. I filmed every time I done Chinti after every session to watch back and see if there were certain things I was working on. So I said about timing. So I wanted to watch back on my timing. Did my timing feel good? Again, I wasn't looking for connection in my body because that's hard to watch on video. But there was certain things like timing was that there. Regarding the YouTube, I mean, that started off that I wanted my instructor to put videos out, but he wasn't too happy doing that. So I said, well, I'll do videos for the students. And he was like, yep, that's fine. And it started off as just videos for the students. And then it kind of became into this thing where it just grew and blossomed and there was more people watching. And I mean, I've hated it at times, sat there at silly o'clock at night time editing videos and watching myself back going, that's rubbish. I'm not posting that. But again, it builds a bit of confidence in what I'm doing. And that's kind of how I saw it was, well, this is going to build confidence in what I'm doing. If I get good feedback from people around the world, great. If I get interesting feedback from people who are trying to help me, great. If I get rubbish feedback from people who say I'm rubbish, that's fine as well, because you're just going to help build my videos on YouTube. So fire in the comments. And that's how I kind of worked on it. But I think, again, we talked about all these tools to help you improve. Why would you not use a video? Video yourself and watch yourself. Why not? You don't have to share it with someone, but be confident in yourself. Video yourself, watch it back. If you're not happy, well, make a little list on what you're not happy about and go and work on it.
Hmm. Do you think sometimes like the people who point you out on certain things, are they usually right, or does it actually help you improve some of the things that you never thought of, that was there?
Um, I've had a couple that have been really like good conversational sort of. We go back and forth talking about the technique and variations, and I enjoy those ones. I enjoy the one. I had someone from SKIF, a Kanazawa club, and we were talking about the variations, and that was enjoyable. But then I get ones that will sit there and say, "There's no power in my punch," and I'm like, right, okay, yeah, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. That's not karate you're doing. Or I've had ones that have made weird comments about my foot position, or I use furudachi a lot from the style of Shotokan we practice. So I quite often get comments saying that I'm doing karate wrong because I'm in a furudachi. Those comments like that I can't be bothered with, because we're not proving anything, we're not working on anything. I mean, I've also had one saying that I would lose in a street fight if I was to use my karate, and it's
Hmm.
like, well, thank you for that, but I have been in a fight. Unfortunately, I've had to use my karate, so I kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. But you know,
Yeah, that it is whatever that you do, there are always people who can find something to say, and then
oh,
if you go with them, then it's just never ending.
definitely. I mean, you could put the most perfect kata out there, and I mean, I've seen videos where people have put some outstanding karate videos out there, and you read through the comments, and it's just crazy what they're picking faults on. It's almost like if they can, they're gonna say something, And I think my kind of mentality with it, and I was speaking to someone about this, was these people don't realize the more they comment on your video, the more it builds the algorithm, the more popular your video gets. So they're doing you a favor. So just say thank you to them, smiley face, and be done with it. And that's how I answer most of them now. Thank you with a smiley face, and that's it, done.
Yeah, that's smart. I would rather have engagement than to have, no action at all. So, bad comment is also engagement.
Exactly. We welcome the bad comments. We'll use the bad comments.
I want to ask you this question, and from talking to you, from you sharing the answer, I know that you're a person who like to learn more and
Hmm.
don't are not going to be afraid to dig deeper to find out the nuances, right? The
Yeah.
technique that hidden right in the service. So, wondering how you approach life outside the dojo, like with all the thinking, research, deepening. How do you think that for us doing things with you in real life, long-term study then can help what a fast progress can never can? Like why do we need to focus more on studying deeper on the topics that we need to?
I think for me, if I study deeper into something, and we take karate for example, but take anything, take a job. If you study deeper into the job, for me, I have more confidence behind myself. I think if I go into something and I've learned 20 things about that thing, but I'm not confident in one thing, then I'm not standing a good chance in whatever I'm doing in life. So I think in life you have to have confidence in what you're doing. Even if you're going into something new, you need to have some sort of confidence behind you in your own ability, and you trust yourself. So for me, studying deeper into, say, for example, the katas, when I go to teach or if I go to train, I have confidence in myself that, okay, well, I know what I'm talking, or I should hope I know what I'm talking about. And I can kind of at least demonstrate that. I don't want to go to a club and the sensei goes, right, we're doing the kata MP today. And I go, oh, I know all the katas, but I'm a bit unsure on that. I want to be able to go, oh, sensei, MP it is, let's go. So I think studying deeper for me, to answer that question, it builds a confidence and a trust in your own ability.
How do you decide something that you wanted to really spend more time developing, right? Do more research and study on, and something that when you look at it, I don't want to bother with that. Like, how do you think karate help you do that to pick and choose which one to dive deeper, which one to just say pass?
Yep. Yep. So I'll go to kata again. So I always break it down into two sections of what I want to study deeper. One is what I'm naturally drawn to. So let's take the kata chinte. That's my favorite kata. So I'm always drawn to trying to dive deep into that kata and study its nuances, its applications, its meaning. And that's because I just feel I'm naturally drawn to it. The other category I break it down into is the katas that I'm not so good at. I want to dive deep into those katas and finesse them, make them better, polish them up. The section I don't is katas I find I'm quite confident with. If I find, like, let's just take like Hen Godan, for example. If I find, I find that kata easier than the rest, I'm not going to deep dive into it right now. I'd rather deep dive into the kata I'm bad at and get good at that kata. And I think it was, trying to remember the book I read for it. It was Kugawa Sensei, I believe. And he made this little comment about if you're a shorter person, a light person, you should study heavy katas. If you're a heavy person, you should study light katas. And I quite like that because, what he was implying was, if you're a shorter, lighter person, you want to study the katas you're maybe not so good at. And for me, that's always stuck. And that's the same with anything in life again. If I'm naturally drawn to it, I want to study it. I want to deep dive into it. If I'm not so good at it, I want to study it. I want to deep dive. If I already know a good amount of information about it, well, I can just leave that on its shelf and I know it's there for me.
That's a great answer. And then that's why my sensei asked me to work on the inside because he could
Yes.
already see it, with the body and the type that I have. It's just a good way. And I don't think there's right or wrong. There are people who like to work on their weaknesses so that
Yep.
it becomes one of their strong point. But there are other people too who bury their weakness so deep and only work on what they're good at, and they
Yep.
become really good at what they're good at. So I don't think that's right or wrong, and that's why I want to ask you that question to, find your approach to approach your life with all the lessons that you learned from the dojo.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously personal for everyone, isn't it? And like you're saying, like people kind of hide their weaknesses away and get really good at what they're good at. And I think I know there's no right or wrong, but sometimes that's playing it safe. And, you want to take that next step and you want to, again, we talk about have that confidence behind yourself. Like for me, for anyone, you want to be walking life with confidence and trust in yourself. You don't want to be walking to work feeling a shell of who you could be. And like that's kind of that's one of the big lessons I've had from karate is being able to have confidence in myself and a trust in myself. And again, that's a credit to my senseis and to my students who've been able to develop that within me. And it's a personal journey, and like I said, it's everyone's got their own journey to go on, and it's a matter of finding that support and that network to be able to develop that for yourself.
Hmm. So how would you help a student to feel more confident by slowing them down and when to push them to move faster?
I've got a student who's quite often like that. Like sometimes they need that confidence building, they need that push. And for me, it's trying to again, we talk about trying to find each student and what they're good at, what they're not good at, and you want them to be good at their karate. So it's not one of those things that happens straight away. For me, I spend quite a lot of time with them, and I talk to them, I get to know them, and kind of break down that barrier, and then I kind of get what they want from karate. So we talked about like fighting or kata or fitness or self defense. For me, it helps finding what they want to gain from the karate in the long run. So, for example, this one student, she wanted to gain more confidence. So, teaching her to do a kata and how to use it to fight someone wasn't going to work. She just wanted to be more confident. So it was a case of let's do the kata, and then every now and then we'll get someone to watch her to build that confidence. And it was kind of just tailoring the lesson to suit her to build that confidence. And now she'll go up and she'll do a full kata in front of everyone. So it works, but I don't think there's like a set way of how you can get that from someone. I think you have to really tailor it to each individual, especially this day and age when we have so much voice and vocalization. I think before we could get away with you're in class, so be quiet and do as you're told. Whereas now it's, we want to be there to support each other and build that community.
Yeah, I really like that answer. So you set me up perfectly to answer this question. So how do you think social media nowadays influence how people train?
Yeah, so I think, and this is where I said I made a comment before, you have to find the right people to watch. It, some people watch the wrong people and then they get this idea that they're not good enough. And it's not that they're the wrong people, it's just that they're very good. So then you get students say, well, I'm not good enough, I'm nowhere near as good as them. And it's like, no, that's not, they're doing their karate, you need to do your karate sort of thing. And it depends again what they're after within their karate. So if they're after confidence, they can share their videos, share their kata online, get feedback from people. If they're after practical applications, then use social media to find different videos on how people are using it for practical applications. And I encourage a lot of my students to try and read about stuff online. So, or listen to podcasts. So, for example, I've mentioned your podcast, I've mentioned the UK Karate Podcast, because sometimes hearing someone else's story, I think, helps with people's karate as well. So I've heard lots of things from different martial artists on podcasts, like little stories, which I think, I can take that away and apply that to my karate. Or the other one simply is looking at pictures. Like the amount of karate pictures I've looked at online from different karateka, just to help build my confidence in my karate, it's ridiculous. I spend all the time looking at stuff online.
Yeah, that's a really good way to use technology to help you, especially if you know your body type, if you find a similar body type or personality that you agree
Hmm.
to. So I think those are the one that you should pay more attention to versus, like you said, if you watch for like the world champion doing kata or kumite, obviously there's still a big gap
Yeah,
in that, and it's not that you cannot, maybe you eventually want to be at that level. There's nothing wrong with that, but by finding the right body type, by the mentality too, maybe you agree with what this person is saying, maybe you
yeah.
completely disagree with what another person is saying. There's no right or wrong. The internet, social media is big enough. There's millions of content out there to choose from.
Well, definitely. That's what I mean. We're blessed to have as much access to all this information as we do have. Like before, you would look at a magazine and you'd try and copy the picture, whereas now we have videos and we have tutorials. So I think it's important if you're going to do it, put the research in of what you want to study. Like I talk about this a lot with my instructor. We have principles that we kind of adhere to with our karate. So a lot of time now when I'm watching other karateka, I'm thinking, can I apply my principles to that? I'm not trying to copy their movement, but can I put their movement into our principles? So, like my advice for anyone that wants to use social media, that's great. Use it. We've got it. It's there. But be very selective. Do your research and understand what you're looking for.
Mhm. So, what do you think changes when someone commits to fewer things than to try to study everything that is available to them out there?
I think you get a deeper understanding and an appreciation for it. And like I said this, like when we study kata, I start linking the other katas to more senior ones. So when I go deeper into studying a few things, so my instructor, he was worried that we studied the Heian katas too much. But what I was finding was the rest of my katas were getting loads better, and my understanding of them was getting loads better. So I think if you kind of just push a few things away and just study a few things at a time, for example, your Heian katas, you start to have a deeper appreciation, a deeper confidence, a deeper understanding that you can then go and apply to other katas because you can link it back to the Heian katas.
And what would you recommend to a karateka or a martial artist who feel the pressure because they're seeing all kinds of fancy things people do on social media, pressure themselves too quickly to move on?
Yeah, so I had this when I was younger, and obviously I seen all these people online, and I wanted to be able to do what they were doing. And it was until I got a bit older and I met my instructors. You have to have confidence to understand that this is your karate. So like I can't stress this enough to karateka, and you have to develop your karate. I know you follow a club, you follow association, you follow your senseis. I understand that, but ultimately, at the end of the day, this is your karate, your journey. We have the community, that's great, but it's your karate, and you need to understand that you're never going to be Swire, or you're never going to be Hayden, or you're never going to be such and such. You're going to be you, and you need to understand and appreciate that you have your karate, and that tops everyone else's. Focus on your karate, and that would be again. I would advise people to really focus on their karate and what they want to achieve from their karate.
That's really good advice. I could apply it to a lot of different things. Maybe just in the month, like you said, work on one thing and one thing
Mhm.
good only. And then when you feel comfortable, then you move on to other skills. Because if you plan for this for the long term, so maybe you'll only work on one techniques per month, but over the course of 12 months, you might be lucky to have 12 techniques. And then when you add on, those don't disappear. It's still in, your mental, physical bank. You have do those movements already, and then later on you come revisit it. You be better. And then you work
Yeah,
on maybe those techniques again, then you come a lot better.
yeah, because like I said, what I find now is when I go back to another technique or kata, I start going, oh, that's the same feeling as that one I just done. That's the same feeling as that, and then I start piecing them together. So, like you said, if you focus on one technique, you then go into the next one. You go, okay, that's the feeling I'm looking for. That connects back to that one. That's cool. And then you go to the next technique and you go, okay, that's what I'm looking at there. Oh, that's really cool. Now I can link it to those techniques. And you start finding that a lot of the techniques, a lot of the kata, you can kind of connect all together.
For a listener who wanted to reach out to you to learn more about your teaching, and then watch some of the videos that you have done, what would be a good way to connect with you?
Yeah, so I have my Facebook and Instagram page, which is my name, Hayden Meredith. I have my website, which is my club's name, which is Station Shotokan Karate Club. And I have a YouTube channel, which is Sensei Station. So you can get through to me on all of them. Other ways, if you check out Budo Mindset Magazine, you'll be able to find some of my articles on there, and you can kind of read about my thinkings and my thoughts on katas and aspects of martial arts. So I'd say that'd be the best ways to get a hold of me and pop me a message, or and we'll just see where we go from there.
Thank you, Hayden. I'll put all the links in the show notes, and then really appreciate that you come onto the show today.
No, it's been great, and I'm a big fan of the show. I've been listening to a few of the podcasts you've done, and I'm really grateful you've invited me on, and I look forward to seeing where it goes, and hopefully, again, it grows into something big, and see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.